getting a sticky ball with the sticky hand.
To get the sticky ball with sticky hand.
Oh, you got it. Oh. All right. Welcome to FaBled Hunters.
I'm Yuanji.
I'm Saint.
And today we're going to be talking about some of the updates in the Flesh and Blood world.
That's right. There's been many updates, and you've been much closer to the updates than I have, because you've actually been to Amsterdam, but I've been looking from afar, getting different private messages, looking at different Discords and seeing different images, but you heard it from the man himself, right?
Yeah, so we have two pieces of primary information from Legend Story Studios. We have from Brian Gottlieb, where he did a keynote speech. You know, usually James does the keynote, but he wasn't available to attend. So Brian did a great job in his place. And also James White did a text interview with SEG.
Yep.
Both of them were kind of discussing the future plans for Flesh and Blood, you know, after Part of the Mistveil. And so, you know, Part of the Mistveil drops, we have a Pro Tour. Part of the Mistveil is like super powerful, really impacting the game a lot. Where do we go from here? So I think there's a couple of important things that I wanted to highlight about the keynote speech. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the product roadmap. And the very first product that was interesting to me was when they were talking about First Strike decks. So First Strike decks were first available to buy at Gen Con.
Preview, right? On a preview basis. It's not generally available yet, right?
Yeah, well, it was available at Gen Con, and then I think now it's like 1 or 2 weeks after that. Now it should be available in stores this week, or maybe on the weekend.
On the weekend of filming. Yeah. Wait, but hold on. Yeah. I just want to mention again, Gen Con, right? You mentioned Gen Con.
Yeah.
Remember, since 2022, everybody complaining about, oh, is LSS going to be at the shows? Why isn't there a show presence? Now they're at like almost every show.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you mentioned to me, after Part of the Mistveil's world premiere in Japan, where they had that nice, beautiful blue booth, they've been using that booth everywhere, right?
Yeah, it was at Pro Tour.
It was almost like it was a soft launch of their convention format, their convention rollout. But they've been preparing it, and Legend Story Studios does listen to its community.
Yeah.
Sometimes the community has too many damn opinions and they're not patient, but LSS is making the right changes. They're making the right calibrations to their strategy. Yeah,
and I think on the topic of First Strike decks at Gen Con, Brian himself said that the product seems like it did really well, where I think they said that they sold like a set of the First Strike decks once every 2 minutes, which is kind of crazy to think about, because Gen Con I think is like a 4-day long event.
Yep.
Which starts from Thursday to Sunday.
4 days, yep.
So, I mean, like, even if they're not like fully set up on Thursday, like, it's like, even for 3 days to sell one every 2 minutes, people are just like lining up the whole time. Really great to see. And I think one of the things that is really important to me about First Strike, and I think, you know, I talked to you about this a lot offline, is I'm really concerned, or not concerned, but like, it's like really important to me whether the new player experience is really good. Because, you know, while it's great to like travel to all these events and see like the same familiar faces like every event, you know, like, I would like to see some new faces. And every time I meet a player who's telling me that it's their first, you know, their first like big event that they're going to, it makes me feel really good about kind of where the game is at. Because if we can continue to get people really interested and passionate about Flesh and Blood, to make them excited that they want to spend, you know, a couple $100s on hotel, on a flight to go play Flesh and Blood, even if it's not to compete for the top prize, but just to compete and be there and be in the, and be around like other people who love Flesh and Blood. I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah, that's a good sign. That's what we need. We need more players, we need more people to join us, and we need more people to take Flesh and Blood seriously, because good players, strong players, engrossed players buy more boxes, right? They play the game with others, they practice with others, they make for stronger team members, and
hopefully we can get North American Flesh and Blood as strong again, or even stronger than it's ever been in prior years. So
yeah, so I felt really good about kind of the direction of these First Strike decks. So Brian kind of said that these were kind of like an update to essentially like the IR Welcome decks, where IR Welcome, like you've played the IR Welcome deck before, you know, like you're kind of doing the same thing every turn. You go Kodachi, you throw an attack, and then really you're just like trying to hit that like Whirling Mist Blossom with the lunging press or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, the game, it's not like super compelling, and then you could be like, oh well, why is it Ira, Katsu, whatever? Like it would be the same. With
well, I think to be fair, back in 2019 and parts of 2020, it was necessary for a bare bones, very basic rollout of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
And now it sounds like First Strike is an update to that, making it a little more spicy, but not also super complicated where you're doing, you know, infinity quadrillion point damage Zen combos. Right? So it's like an on-ramp to all that crazy degeneracy.
Yeah, I think that the most important aspect of Flesh and Blood that I kind of felt from the very beginning was its focus on the heroes, the hero identities, how each deck kind of wants to play in a different way. And, you know, like Dory wants to hit her sword twice. If you're playing Kano, you want to combo off all your spells from the top of your deck. If you're playing Zen, you want to play like 2 Art of Wars and like a million you want to
2 Art of Wars every single turn. You want to transcend 16 times, do 47 backflips, and then smack the other guy with your tiger taming Katara, right?
Yeah. So basically, like every hero has their own unique take on the game. And it's interesting because even though they're all operating on the axis of attacking or blocking for the most part, every hero goes about it in a different way. And I think that like this aspect of Flesh and Blood, like the hero-centric focus, is kind of what makes Flesh and Blood stand out compared to like a lot of other games. You know, you play Magic the Gathering, you're playing like a blue deck. It doesn't matter, you play blue deck in this set, you play blue deck in another set, you're playing like a control deck, you play counter spells, you play a red deck, you play burn spells and like hasty creatures, you know, it's like kind of the same thing. Sometimes it's a dragon, sometimes it's a goblin, whatever. Like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like, but in Flesh and Blood, as you go from hero to hero, you play Chain and then you play Vinset, they're the same class talent combination. They're very different
flavors.
Very different. And so I think Brian said that they spent a lot of effort kind of honing in on this aspect of Flesh and Blood, what makes it special, and like how each character has their own unique play style. So like Terra has the ability to, you know, make like really big attacks set up like with might tokens. I don't know if they have auras, whereas, you know, Aurora wants to play these like lightning cards to give her embodying the lightning to set up, and then she can go like 4 or 5 attacks wide, or something like that. And it's just like these two very contrasting play styles, and how to make a product with a lot of simple cards that still, you know, allow you to do these things. And I think that that's part of like the Flesh and Blood, you know, 3.0 design, like making more of these like synergy based like things that make you feel like really unique, doing like your own cool, powerful things. And so I thought it was like really cool that they spent this much development. I think Brian said that they spent like quite a lot of development time on First Strike. And so I thought it was really cool to see that going from, you know, IR Welcome deck to the Monarch Blitz decks, which everybody's kind of making like a joke about, you know, how they weren't that great. To you have like Dory versus Rhinar, you know, that was Classic Battles, that was another experiment in this direction. And then now you have First Strike, which is kind of like not the final point, but it's the most recent,
an updated 3.0 ready version of a new player on-ramp product, right? So that will also dispel all the jerk-offs that say, Flesh and Blood is too expensive. Oh, I can't play it. It's like, okay, you can go spend $2,000 for an MTG Modern deck. Heck, bling it out for $4,000. But, you know, now people want to complain about what are First Strike products, like sub $40, right? Maybe $25, $30.
Yeah, I think it's around probably like $10 per deck.
Yeah, $25 for 2 people. It's not too expensive, and you get you know, a good bang for your buck, and you get cards that you can play again and again, and you get heroes that are playable in Blitz, right?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing is just, I think a continued attention to the new player experience is super important for the growth of Flesh and Blood. I don't think that any of us in the Flesh and Blood community should feel kind of just like comfortable with just letting things happen the way they are. And so, you know, whether it be introducing new people at your local game store to the game, you know, stuff like that, convincing your friend to come join you, introducing them to learn how to play the game, either online or offline. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of help grow. And I think Flesh and Blood is still in a growth stage. And so that was really cool.
Yeah. Bring new players into the game. Or, I mean, you can even like go ask a gal out on a date and you guys can play Flesh and Blood for the first time. And that's how you bring more ladies into our community, because I think we were a very lady-friendly, open community early days.
Maybe do it on the second date.
Second date, yes.
Second date.
I'd rock it on the first date. I'd give it a shot.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, here's a card game. Check it out. It'll be fun. Don't worry. I'm not going to let you win. I'm going to still bash your face in. Ha ha ha. And I guess. Second date.
And then that was really cool. Of course, we during the keynote they went over a lot of the Rosetta designs. You know, there's some kind of out there designs. There's like split cards and all these like crazy things. And now it matters like how many Earth cards you have to banish, like all this stuff. So I don't think that they're taking a step back on the complexity for the main set, but you know, they're, I think, continuing to deliver more, I would say, daring, more experimental designs that are kind of pushing Flesh and Blood past the everything's face up attack blocking cycle, which I think is a good thing for the game. The actual product that I'm also kind of excited, a little wary, you know, cautious optimism about is Mastery Pack Guardian.
Oh god, I saw that one.
So I know we give a lot of flack to Bright Lights. This is kind of like Bright Lights 2.0, but not in the form of, you know, like of a full set. So it doesn't replace a set. There's going to be, you know, still 3 draftable sets next year. Okay. But it's kind of like a supplementary product. So instead of doing a supplementary set, they're doing Mastery Pack Guardian, which is 130-ish cards. Most of them are...
Sounds like an expansion set, though.
Yeah. No, but I think that's what it is. It's like an expansion. It's like what Bright Lights should have been the Mechanologist expansion set. Yeah. And then they could have had like another, you know, but yeah, that's in the past.
Okay. So instead of Bud Light, this is like
Guardian
Michelob Light or something like that. But they've fixed out all the kinks this time, I think, right?
Yeah, so I wonder, I'm really curious to see what it's like, because, you know, I do think that it is pretty important to give people who are playing a class, even if their class doesn't really get updated and like very much over the course of, you know, the year. You know, sometimes heroes get love via the expansion slot, but I think it's really cool they're giving Guardians this whole set, and I'm really curious to see like where it goes, because, you know, if it's like 132 cards, I would expect, you know, there would be like 1 or 2 legendaries, maybe some majestics, maybe like some new staple commons and rares that they're playing. Okay. And I really wonder like where this is gonna take us, because, you know, Guardian, while it was really dominant in the time of Oldhim, hasn't been like super strong.
It's even been a little weak, it feels like, right? Yeah. With all these go again and all this damage output, it feels like Guardian needs some, you know, tweaking, because Guardian feels outdated, like the gameplay is outdated, and there's no way to mitigate those infinity chain combos. Right?
Yeah, I think I heard since Bright Lights came out, I believe Guardian has one of the shallowest card pools currently out of any set or any class, particularly the like non-talented Guardian card pool. So, you know, pretty interested to see how that turns out, especially because, you know, there's going to be like crack shuffle play. Brian mentioned it also as being like, I think one of the things that they are trying to do with productization, which I appreciate a lot, is make the products easier to understand like which one you should be buying.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave the example at the keynote where it's like, let's say, you know, you're trying Flesh and Blood out for the first time and you really like Victor.
Yeah.
And you want to play Victor and you're like, well, or sorry, maybe you don't, I think he said like, you don't know you want to play Victor, like you say you want to play Guardian. So, and you ask like a store like what you should buy. Mm-hmm. And so like the knowledgeable store owners are gonna be like, oh, well, you should buy some WTR, some heavy hitters, you should buy some Crucible of War, a little bit of like Everfest, whatever. You know, like it's like very confusing. Like
that's a
little bit of little bit of everything. Whereas he said that he wants it to be like, if you want to start off playing Guardian, mm-hmm. you buy this. This is like your starting point. Okay,
but why Guardian to start off? Is it because Guardian really has such a shallow card pool? Why not like a Dorinthia starter pack? With like waifu Dorinthia cards.
Warrior starter set?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a hint that maybe there's going to be more warrior support in the next set.
Oh, I mean, just if it's by the numbers, and if Guardians are really that deprived, then I guess. But are Guardians really that deprived? You said they have a shallow card pool. Is it really the worst, or is it really...
Yeah, I think,
by a lot?
I think someone, I remember reading, like, someone said that Guardian has, like, one of the shallowest card pools. But, you know, I'm all for Warrior getting more cards. Probably, maybe there's going to be another Warrior inclusion in the set after Rosetta. Yeah, maybe that's going to be the case. Because I agree, Warrior's also on the shorter end of the stick when it comes to...
Yeah, I feel like they need a little bit of love. Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, the third Monarch set is...
upcoming.
It's supposed to come out.
Did he mention anything about the set after Rosetta?
No information on that yet.
Okay.
But, you know, pretty exciting things coming up on the product side.
I think they also mentioned that they're watering down the judge packs a little bit, or reining it in a little bit.
Yeah, I think they're not gonna have these like guaranteed like super high value reprint cold foils in the judge pack. So I'm not entirely sure what the direction of the judge packs is going to be. From what I heard from some of my judge friends, you know, it's going to be a lot, like the next iteration of judge pack is going to be worth a lot less than the current ones. So who knows what that means for the future of judge compensation.
Who knows? Also means that it might be a good time to have hoarded up on a lot of the older judge packs.
And then the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting was when he was going over the event roadmap. Mm-hmm. So, you know, introducing a lot of new regions. I'm really excited about calling Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
And hopefully going to try to make that one out. But I wanted to talk, because this also ties in with the interview that James had with SEG.
Yeah, for sure. That was a lengthy interview. There was a lot of questions, a lot of content being covered there.
Yeah, so at the very end of this year, there's going to be a calling in Chicago hosted by MinMax Games that's going to be Living Legend format.
Yeah.
And that is what I wanted to talk about on this episode, because Living Legend, we have been kind of proponents of this format from the very beginning.
We've been talking about it since before the first Living Legend main event, which happened at Barcelona.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we've been talking about it a lot. We think that it's integral to the future of Flesh and Blood as a collectible card game.
And James backed that up too. He says, absolutely, you need a game, you need a format like Living Legend where every single card can thrive and breathe within the format, right? Which is what Living Legend provides. It provides an environment where every single card matters, where you don't basically get rotated out. And he wants to do everything possible to avoid full-on rotation where thousands of cards get rotated out of the pool, and the player base, the community, feels shafted, or they feel like, you know, their collection values get incinerated every few months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things to unpack here. First, we should talk about kind of the state of Living Legend as a format. Mm-hmm. I think at the highest level, Living Legend is probably doing pretty good. You know, at the last Battle Hardened, that was at Pro Tour Amsterdam, the top 8 was 8 different heroes.
8 different heroes, yeah.
So, you know, in that respect, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true diversification. Perfect diversification, right?
Yeah. I think Not at the top levels, however. There's a lot of work that still has to be done.
Sure.
This skirmish season, there's gonna basically you can play either the stores can choose to either host Blitz or Living Legend skirmishes, and from the anecdotal evidence that I'm getting, I would say that the overwhelming majority of stores are gonna choose Blitz.
I believe it, just because people are used to what they're used to, but I would really encourage stores out there to flip the script and try Living Legend and see how many vintage players show up and how many Starvos are welcome to the table.
Yeah, and so I think that there's like a couple of things that should be done. I'm not really sure like what the direction that they want to take Living Legend. My personal belief is that at least towards the beginning of the format, Living Legend ought to be kind of like presented as more as like I think it should be like a less sweaty format, if that makes sense, where it's an opportunity for you to play all of the most powerful cards that they've ever printed.
Okay.
But I think when you have like super degenerate gameplay, I think it also makes sense to make it less top heavy. So I actually am not a huge fan of the way that they have the types of events that they've only done for Living Legend thus far, where it was like the Battle Hardened for like the Prism Statue first place prize.
Yep.
And then they had like the Battle Hardened where it's like basically you get like top 2, that's like a prize. And then the rest of the people, whatever, you get peanuts. And
then at Amsterdam there's another Battle Hardened, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying like the Battle Hardened like pricing structure, it's basically all the same.
But they're changing that. You see, in Chicago it's going to be a calling, so presumably at least the top 8 is going to make, you know, gold foils, right?
Yeah, but I think it's still... I think the main thing that is important for Living Legend, at least at this point in the game, and I'm not saying don't host these events. Obviously, I think that it's still really important to have marquee events, but I think that they're kind of trying to do this with Skirmish, where, you know, Skirmish is like less... Skirmish is more casual. There's like, you know, kind of flatter pricing, although I haven't taken a look at this year's Skirmish pricing. I think that their structure is still, to be honest, a little bit sweaty, and Flesh and Blood has always kind of been like this.
Sweaty meaning too many spikes.
It's like too
spiky.
Too top heavy.
Okay.
Like the prizes are too much distributed to the top performing players during the tournament. And the reason why I think that it's really important for Legend Story Studios or for other stores, tournament organizers to explore the idea of doing different types of tournament structures, pricing structures, is because when you're trying to get more people to really want to play Living Legend, to try it out, I think a big component of this is kind of removing the initial barrier to entry. And so like if you're somebody who enjoys playing like, you know, some of the older cards, or let's say you don't have like an older hero built, and you just start and you want to play your CC hero. I think if you play Zen, it's honestly still fine. But let's say if you don't have Zen built, can you like play like, you know, can you play your Bravo deck? Can you play your Riptide deck in Living Legend? And I think to create an environment where a lot of people want to at least like give Living Legend a shot and let them to see if they enjoy playing the format, then, you know, sure, like also have the sweaty tryhard events. Okay. I think this kind of plays itself out in the store adoption towards Living Legend, at least currently, and so I'm not saying that anyone's at fault here, but this is kind of the issue, is that everybody is familiar with Blitz kind of as this format, where Blitz, you know, people play at an armory all the time, and there just needs to be, I think, more of these types of Living Legend, like low impact events.
I would say that you just need to take it a step at a time, because the fact that, you know, the first Battle Hardened in Barcelona, everybody, you know, a handful of people showed up, and then there was the one at Pro Tour LA, which our mutual buddy Mike took down. Then Alexander Vore, a really well-known name, took it down with Kano. Yeah. And then you got that diversification. These are 3 Battle Hardened events, and now we're going to scale up to calling. And now on the flip side, on the, you know, lower rung of competition, not so much regional or major events, you've got skirmishes available. Yeah. You got to let it slowly breathe and adopt, you know, and maybe as they're become 2 or 3 callings or 2 or 3 major events per year that have Living Legend. You let it slowly, you know, just organically grow. And as long as there are more, I mean, right now the whole prize pool is over 1.5 million. And I would say Living Legend is probably this year less than 2% of that, right? Less than maybe 30,000.
Yeah.
Right? If one calling is 25,000 plus, you know, 2,000 across the Battle Hardens, or 5,000 across the Battle Hardens, whatever they are, then that's less than 2%. Maybe, you know, next year you can move up to, you know, 5%. It'll be 100,000 out of like a $2 million prize pool, right? Potentially. And then that slowly just grows. And if it's a $100,000 prize pool, then you'll see more people start pursuing the prizes. And then the pros who are already sweaty in Classic Constructed will also have their side deck. Yeah. And then you'll see people at events playing Living Legend for fun. Yeah. Right?
I also want to kind of make a call to action for any content creators or any competitive players who are really excited about Living Legend. And I would ask that we also should make an effort to kind of promote this game format, as I think it's going to be overall positive impact for the future of the game. I think having a format where people can feel comfortable, just like no matter if they get into Flesh and Blood, they quit for a couple months, a year or two, they come back, all their cards, or
their OG Prism deck is still functional.
Yeah, most of their cards
are, you know, for noobs like me, I can always show up with Starvo. And now that we got Channel Lake Frigid back, we got 3 copies, it's unrestricted, then it's a lot less difficult for us to find our Ice Fuse mechanic. So that helps.
If we can also promote, you know, gameplay, I would really love to see some kind of community organization around creating like a Living Legend. You know how like Magic does Eternal Weekend that's like separate from like the Wizards circuit of events?
Yeah.
I really would find it like super cool if we had a version of like Living Legend Weekend.
Okay.
You know, some kind of like format, some kind of event where we're celebrating Living Legend as a format.
But that's what the calling kind of, that's a soft little nod. Maybe it's not fully, but just a more developed calling.
Well, my point was that I think it should, some aspects of the game I think should be detached from the LSS competitive circuit.
Okay.
I think my original point was that I think that the LSS competitive circuit is super sweaty.
Okay.
And I think that
nobody will deny that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I think that it's really up to the community, it's up to us, like the content creators, the competitive players who are, you know, excited about the format, to give people, you know, access to resources, to entertainment, to ways that they can dip their toes and begin to understand Living Legend format. And ways to enjoy it, you know, tournament organizers, ways to enjoy Living Legend format, I think that aren't as sweaty. I guess that was my whole point. It's not super well formed. I don't think that any one party shares like full responsibility for finding out the solution, but I really do think that Living Legend is very important for the game moving forward. And James White said in his interview, I asked Brian at PTLA whether or not they were ever going to print direct to Living Legend cards. That actually got asked to James
in the SCG thing as well.
And the SCG interview as well.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, they're not going to release direct to Living Legend.
And I was like, what about that Briar card? Oh, about that Briar card. I'm printing out that Briar card because there might or might not be elemental rune blades in print in the future.
Yeah.
Right?
So you know, they are committed to printing cards that aren't currently legal in CC, but you know, might be available only for Living Legend.
They printed out those dragon cards in Mistveil too, right?
Yep.
So that happens. So they're not printing it just for Living Legend.
Right.
They're printing it for the card pool for the future heroes that pop up.
Yeah.
And if you use them in Living Legend in the meantime, then so be it.
Yeah, I kind of wanted them to do like a kind of like Modern Horizons, like jump start into Living Legend, but you know, they have their own plans.
Baby steps, man, baby steps.
Yeah.
I would say you need the format to breathe. I think we're still closing in on year 1 of the format because the first main Living Legend event was November of 2023, and we're not even 1 year. We're like month 9.
No, that's totally fair. And you know, it also took even I know in the US it took a while for CC to like really take off. You know, I remember when I first started playing, all the skirmishes were blitz.
Yep.
Barely anybody was able to like put together a CC deck.
But then the calling started getting beefed up to become 5-figure events, and then there was a 6-figure prize purse on every major, which was hosted by CC. And you know what they say, follow the money, right? Everybody just trends towards where the prize dollars are. And I think it will organically just fall into place. So here is me saying that if they increase the prize pool to $100,000 a year instead of like call it $30,000 a year, then you'll really get a very strong Living Legend year 2. So,
okay, yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea. Yeah, so I think those are the kind of the major points that were made. Really excited to see how Flesh and Blood develops, you know, this year after Part the Mistveil. I think that Flesh and Blood 3.0 is super exciting, and I think we might be at, you know, another like critical juncture for the course of the game, where this might be the time when, you know, a lot of players might start playing Flesh and Blood. A lot of players might return to Flesh and Blood because of Living Legend. And I'm very excited about the future of Flesh and Blood moving forward.
Absolutely, and not just that, I just want to take this moment because we've been talking about it ourselves, we've been hearing it. I've heard it from you, I've heard it from Runaways, I've heard it from other competitive players, I've seen other content creators talk about it, that everybody was whining about the power level of Part of the Mistveil.
Yeah.
Yet, a relatively unknown, prior to this, Japanese player comes in with Uzuri and takes down the Pro Tour, right?
I think he was testing with Tao Tao.
Oh, okay.
And they were both playing like, yeah, the same deck, and Tao Tao also did really well.
Okay. I don't know who Tao Tao is, but the Japanese player I'd never heard of, right? So he wasn't like a perennial pro, right? He just busted on the scene with an Uzuri deck and basically studied the matchups, did something that nobody was expecting. It was off meta, to say the least.
Yeah.
And while everybody was complaining about how overpowered Zen was, and then some other people were like, well, you know, new counter Zen, and it's all about Mistveil, they're just trying to sell boxes. James White even said, hey, like, not in my wildest dreams did I think a dark horse playing a dark horse hero, you know, from Japan would come take down the Pro Tour. But lo and behold, it happened. So that goes to show you that not everything is about net decking, not everything is about going with the popular opinion, and there's still a space, undiscovered spaces of creativity and disruption in the game of Flesh and Blood.
It's only a matter of time. We're just gonna optimize the crap out of the game.
You think so?
Yeah.
You still think so?
Yeah.
I mean, you can believe that, but until the day comes where there's a Flesh and Blood solver on your phone, I think there's still space for disruption, and there's still space for skill expression. Because I don't have his name. We can put his picture up, but I watched all of the games in the top 8, and I think one of them was really close, but the rest of the games that he played were not very close. Right? He
had a really close game against Shin. Shin Sang.
Oh, who was Shin playing?
New,
yes, the assassin.
I had some words with Shin before in preparation for the matchup.
Oh, you talked to him about it?
Yeah. So, you know, really, really cool to see Uzuri win. Unexpected, but
okay. You don't sound too happy about it. If anything, you know, from a layman, I felt it was a Cinderella story that, you know, just flipped the narrative on its head, that, you know, it was one of the 3 Mistveil heroes that would take down everything.
I'm only not happy about it because Shin lost and I was rooting for him, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, man. That doesn't go with your narrative. But it goes with the narrative of every man saying, wow, it didn't take, you know, Zen or New it didn't take a Zen or New to take down the entire world in the Pro Tour, and that an unknown deck, unknown player prior to this could have a chance. And I think that narrative bodes well to other aspiring Flesh and Blood pros, or just aspiring competitive players trying to, you know, make a name for themselves and be immortalized in greatness, whether it be the coming Worlds in Osaka or every major, you know, from here on out. So, yeah, That's great, and hopefully that is the episode, unless...
Yeah, so let us know what you guys are most excited to see in the rest of the upcoming year, and as well as going to next year for Flesh and Blood. And if you haven't already, subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe, support us on Patreon. Dollars go to Yuanji and the Fabled Runaways. Let's go Runaways, everybody. Remember to twiddle that notification button, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. You know, on second thought, it's not so bad. You got like Broadway over there. That's Broadway with the diagonal building. You got Hudson Yards. I was at the cocktail party up there, Wells Fargo headquarters. You got the Edge Observatory deck, so that's pretty cool. That building's actually Macy's. Can you tell? Macy's. Obviously, you've got the Freedom Tower, the New World Trade Center. I think you can also see the Statue of Liberty. Not so bad, yeah. You got Satai over there, Langham Place. One of the nicest hotels, Langham Place. Nice residential real estate too, so yeah. And I forgot to point out, that's at least a very nice unobstructed view of the Empire State Building. So, you know, it's a downgrade, but it could be worse.